like most important experiences in my life, the Gospel of Damascus has a life of its own. It wasn't even supposed to be a novel. Initially, it was supposed to be a scholarly study of Damascus in sacred literature, biblical, extra-biblical Quran, Hadith, and then somehow that became the Epistle of Eliezer, which is found in the English version as an annex. But then it became a novel, and then someone decided they wanted to publish it, and then others wanted to translate it. And here we are in 2016 on the eve of it being published in 4 languages. It's very exciting, and I find myself just sitting down and watching this event unfold. As far as the genre of where to place the Gospel of Damascus, I'm personally attracted to the genre of magic realism. I don't really like classifications. I think possibly it could work under magic realism if you qualify it with maybe magic spiritual realism, if there is such a thing, because of the deep spiritual nature and purpose of the novel. I'm often asked whether or not this has an autobiographical aspect to it. I think, to me, I'm not quite sure how to answer this question, because I feel like most fiction is inspired by actual events. I mean, where else would the inspiration come from? But I think it's often disguised, heavily disguised. I think what I try to do in the Gospel of Damascus is get rid of all the disguises. I did go to McAllister, I studied at Penn, I went back to Damascus, I worked for the UN. So all of this is indeed actual events. However, that's just a framework. What actually took place within these moments is where the imagination takes over. So it'd be quite strange if you're trying to understand my life through the Gospel of Damascus, unless you're simply focusing on major headings like, oh, okay, so he studied here, or he was born in Damascus, or things of this type. But beyond that, of course, it's a very that's where it's a work of fiction. As far as characters in the Gospel of Damascus, of course, many of them are inspired by actual real characters that I've been blessed to know in my life. Perhaps most importantly is the character of Yahya Nouri, which is heavily based on my spiritual mentor or teacher, Bashir al-Bani, who died in 2008 at the age of 97. An amazing Damascene spiritual scholar, upbrinner. I was blessed with, it was over 23 years of proximity to this man, and it always stays with me. He would take me everywhere. He even took me to Milan. We visited Cardinal Martini, who was at the time the Archbishop of Milan. This was in 2000, October 2000. It was an interfaith event, and before the event was to start, we met Cardinal Martini in this closed session, so to speak, and the Cardinal was a very prestigious man. He had stature and he was tall, and he sat down and he gave this formal theological discussion of interfaith dialogue between Islam and Christianity. And then he asked Bashir al-Bani to say something, and people expected something of like nature, something formal. And but Bashir al-Bani wasn't like that at all. He took hold of Cardinal Martini's hand, looked him in his eyes, and he said, "I've been trying to dream of Mary for 15 years. And the Cardinal said, "Mary, the Mother of Christ?" He said, "Yes, Mary, the Mother of Christ, 15 years. And I haven't been able to do so. Can you help me with this?" And the Cardinal called on one of his assistants, and they brought books, and Bashir al-Bani said, no books. And have you experienced this? The Cardinal said, "No, I haven't myself, and I would love to as well. But when I was a child, I dreamt of this." And then Bashir al-Bani started sharing his dreams, and suddenly all these religious boundaries fell apart, and there was just two men talking about the way in which they relate to God. And that was the beauty of Bashir al-Bani, the way you just break through these artificial walls and delve into the spiritual experience, which I try to capture in the Gospel of Damascus. When I started writing the Gospel of Damascus, of course, the tragic events in Syria had already started to unfold. This was 2011. And even then, we already could speak about the hundreds, eventually thousands, perhaps now close to millions, of killed and wounded, detained and displaced and exiled and refugees. Over the last 5 years, I've watched my country systematically destroyed, and the tragedy continues. And I think what I tried to capture in the Gospel of Damascus is a message of hope and optimism. The quote that I use at the beginning of the novel is very close to my heart from the letters to the apostles, something to the effect of, "Behold, out of Syria, I will bring forth a new Jerusalem." In the same way that the Syrian tragedy has now had global implications in a tragic sense, I pray and hope that one day we'll see Syria, Damascus in particular, with global implications of a very different nature, of a positive nature, of an optimistic nature.